What's up, everybody, and welcome into the H&M Trucking Podcast. Thanks for joining me today. I am your host, Marcus, and as always, we've got a great episode jam-packed with interviews for you to enjoy. Joining us later on the show, we'll get a check-in from Deanna with Driver Advocacy. James Fonda, president of H&M, will check in. We will talk to Montey Blake. He's a driver profile for the day. And I'll bring you a little bit of a freight market update, but I'm going to one-up that freight market update today. I'm going to bring on Tim Krueger from JFL Logistics to talk us through. It's always better to have an expert. I have like a very surface-level knowledge of third-party logistics, and that's exactly what today's episode is about, helping you understand third-party logistics. But let's be honest, it's more just helping me understand third-party logistics, since you, drivers, pretty much already have your thumb on what third-party logistics can offer you. We will also hear from Brian Gernandt, van manager. He's going to jump on and join us as well. It's been a while since we've heard from Brian, so excited to have him on the show today. But before we get to anything else, I want to bring you a little bit of breaking news. A law to keep truck tractors in the right lane of roads in New Mexico takes effect on Saturday. Now, New Mexico already has a lot of maintained right lane travel, but the new law will focus on tractor trailers. I think a lot of states already have these laws. I know Oregon, where I live, if it's a 3-lane wide freeway, there's signs all over it that say that the trucks can only be in the right 2 lanes. Now, I have definitely seen trucks in the far left lane to pass. Obviously, a lot of times those signs are posted when you're going up a hill. They've added that 3rd lane to help get by slow traffic. And some trucks are just going so slow because they're so heavy that other trucks need to get around them. And you don't want to do a rolling roadblock here, but it's very loosely enforced in the state of Oregon. I will tell you that. Of course, I don't know the individual stats, and I can't speak for every driver I've seen pulled over on the road in one of these areas. But you hear relatively little about people complaining about it and cops talking about it. So I have a feeling the state troopers put that pretty far down on their list of priorities, keeping everything safe out on the road. In New Mexico, however, violations of this new law could result in a $250 fine for your first 2 offenses. Tick that up to your 3rd offense, and it goes up to $500. I'm curious to know what you drivers think about these laws. Obviously, there's not a lot of time where you're in the far left lane in a 3 or 4 lane situation. You know, you just don't need all of that lane to get around. But I don't know, because obviously I'm a 4-wheeler. I live in the left lane. I'm always there. If there's not much traffic, I'm cruising in the left lane all the time, just because I don't want to jump back and forth between lanes all the time when there's nobody that is trying to get past me in the left lane. I know full well, with the guilt that burns inside of me, that this is not the way that it was intended to be. You should stay right and move left to pass. But I'm interested to know what truckers think about these laws, because it looks to me like in New Mexico, they are going to ramp up enforcement. So I know there's a lot of mountain ranges in New Mexico. There's probably some passes and things like that. There's also probably some very long stretches of desert where there's nothing to look at. And you might want to be kind of trying to put some of your trip behind you in that area, maybe getting over into the left lane to get past some Sunday drivers. I don't know. I want you to tell me. Connect with us on the H&M Friends and Family Facebook page, or just the H&M Trucking Facebook page. Any post that you see on this podcast, I will see. So comment, like, subscribe, share, do all that good stuff for us. It helps keep the podcast moving. That's your breaking news for the day. And we're going to jump right into it with our first interview.
From Omaha, Nebraska, to whatever lane you're driving, this is the H&M Trucking Podcast with your host, Marcus Bridges.
Time for another driver profile here on the H&M Trucking Podcast. Please welcome to the show, Montey Blake. Monty, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. So, Monty, I understand. Well, real quick, let me ask you this. Where are you at right now, and where are you headed today?
Well, right now we're in, I guess technically Carlisle, Pennsylvania, but we're headed home to Harrisburg, quote unquote home, really, not technically home.
And where's technically home?
As of right now, the truck. A few months back, we decided that me and my wife were going to be dedicated, to trucking, and so we kind of gave up our apartment. My mom was living with us at the time. She moved to South Carolina, and we just figured, why have an empty apartment? We were paying like $1,800 a month, and we're no longer going to use it. It just didn't make sense for us.
Sure. No, rent's ridiculous, man. That old viral video from years ago where the guy says the rent is too damn high. I think it's been the case in point ever since that video came out. So that's a great idea and good financial decision for you too, I'm sure. Saving a lot of money every month.
Yeah, because when we first decided to move to the apartment complex, it was about 3 or 4 years ago. It was at like $2,000 a month, and I guess nobody wanted to move in there because it's surrounded around like mansions. So like I could throw a rock and probably hit like a $2 million home.
Wow.
And I guess the apartment complex thought it would be a smart idea to also like up their price, and no one at all wanted to move in, so they put it down to $1,500, and that's when we moved in, and then suddenly they'll try and bring it back up to like $2,000. And I'm talking even for like studio apartments for like $1,600-$1,700.
Wow, that's crazy, man. I can't believe it. Sometimes I look at prices on, like, I've been out of college now for almost 20 years, and some of the apartments that I lived in for $500 a month with all the utilities included are going for well over $1,000 now. And yeah, like you're saying, studio apartment type stuff. It's ridiculous out there. So does the truck feel like home to you yet?
It's definitely been. I mean, I'm on the hopper side, and it feels a lot smaller than all the trucks have been. Normally when we've had a full sleeper, me and my wife was always cooked in it, and we tried to like go to Walmart and get food where we could cook as much as we can. The biggest problem is that you do tend to get, like, depending on like when we make burgers, you typically smell like that cooked burger smell in the truck for like a couple days.
Yeah.
So now it being a smaller truck and us having kind of less room to like get about and cook, been eating out a little bit more, but it definitely feels like home. And on the back of my sleeper, I got one of those like storage bins from Home Depot. I strapped it down and we just put our extra stuff that we don't necessarily need right away. We put it in there, so we definitely made it feel like home.
Very cool.
I think the people at H&M kind of make it so that way we definitely don't kind of feel like it's just a job.
Sure. Absolutely. Now, I understand you're still pretty new at H&M. How long have you been with the company?
It's been, I think, just coming up or already passing just a month.
And so what are your thoughts so far?
Oh, I love it. I mean, ultimately my goal is to become an owner-operator, and, even if I can get a truck that fits the requirements, I would, get like 5-6 trucks and have them all released on to H&M for other drivers. So I do genuinely enjoy here. Everybody's nice, everybody's kind. I know someone said once, even as a company driver, they treat you like an owner operator. You have the freedom. I mean, the last month that I've been with them, me and my wife have got to explore more of the country and do more things. Like, it's always just been, getting that load there and getting on time. But even like 2 or 3 days ago, me and her stopped in Tennessee at the big Pyramid Bass Pro in Memphis. And, we spent like 2 hours just exploring it there, getting something to eat at Wahlburgers and having fun. We didn't get any calls like, oh, hey, all right. We didn't get any calls saying like, oh, we need you to get there, or, you're in a rush, or why are you stopped? They practically don't call us for any reason. And even when the customer is like calling them and hassling them for us to get the load, they're kind of just calling and tell us like, hey, the customer's being annoying, give you an update so I can give them, kind of thing.
Nice. So they're on your side. I hear that a lot. I talk to a lot of H&M drivers, and that's what I hear, is that you're supported. They've got your back. They treat you like a person rather than a number. Things I hear a lot.
Exactly.
That's awesome. How long have you been trucking, like, in general?
So officially with my CDL, I started 5 years ago. So as soon as I turned 21, I went on with the company, and got my CDL. But unofficially, I was driving a small box truck for a company for over a year or two on and off. I was delivering like newspapers, or technically not just newspapers. So like when you, like a lot of people don't know, like when you get those little rolled up things in the mail or in front of your door, it's like a one company that typically gets all of it. So from coupons to the news to any like little ads you get, it typically comes from like one whole warehouse. So I was the person who I'd go and pick the newspapers up and then deliver it to the warehouse that had like all the other coupons and stuff. And I did that for a while. It was fun. And then I actually went to a train company because I'm a big nerd when it comes to anything that has an engine. So I got a job at Norfolk Southern, and I was a trainee there for I think 6-7 months. And like just every day there, you know, some of the places where we drop off our train cars, I see trucks coming in and out. And I look at that and I think, man, I wish that was me. And the situation came up where I had to leave Norfolk Southern, and I joined the truck company and been doing it ever since. Just kind of finding my way, seeing what I love. And part of coming to H&M was realizing that I hated doing drive-in and reefer. It just got way too boring, and I wanted to be more active.
Okay, so you went over the hopper side. That makes great sense. So my question that I have for you from your experience, did driving the box truck translate at all to driving a full-on tractor trailer? Did you learn anything from that, or was it completely different, two different worlds?
Well, see, the funny thing is, a lot of people don't believe me. A lot of truckers don't believe me when I tell them this, but when I was a kid, I was a huge nerd. Like, I played simulators a lot, like farming simulator, flight sim, and a lot of people don't realize, like, those mechanics do translate over. Growing up, I mean, I didn't have the best computer, but I was playing a game called Trucking Sim. Mm-hmm. And at the time, the only states they had in the game were like California, and I mean like full California. And now they have like Texas and Wisconsin and Utah and all those other states. But like most of my experience with learning how to drive a truck was through the game. Because even though I'm just using an Xbox controller, I kind of learned the basics of maneuvering a truck around like parking spots. Mm-hmm. And so when I got my CDL, I was kind of ahead of a lot of people. It got to the point where the only thing I had to really worry about was the pre-trip, like worrying about repetition for the test. But like I'd say within my first 2 or 3 days, like, you know, I kind of already knew what I was doing. And then how I actually was able to pass the test is because I got to the point where I started teaching like other people how I learned it so fast, and kind of helping them from the outside perspective help me pass that test. So I'd say it was more like the experience of playing the game and then, you know, driving a box truck and knowing how big they were and how hard it is to slow them down kind of helped me get into trucking.
That's awesome. Yeah, you know, I see some of these guys that are set up playing American Truck Simulator where they've got like a full cab full of monitors, so it's like they can look out either window and they can see what they would see if they were actually driving. And you know, they've got a gear shifter in there, they got the pedals and the steering wheel. It's crazy how advanced they can get, and I could totally see how that would help you. Like, I mean, it's nice that you're not spending all that money to repair the equipment after you run it into something. If you're playing the simulator, kind of gives you a little bit of experience there. And so my next question has got to be, naturally, because I'm a gamer, do you have a gaming setup at all in your truck?
I do have my Xbox and the TV. Unfortunately, this truck is too small for me to bring my whole flight simulator controls. And, you know, my wife will get on me about it. But it's, you know, I do have my Xbox. The TV and the hoppers do sit up a bit higher than a lot of the trucks I've been in. Uh-huh. So it's kind of one of those things where, like, sometimes when I'm playing the game, I have to kind of, like, stand as if I'm at an arcade or something. But for the most part, yeah, the Xbox, you know, a lot of my sim, like right now, I'm kind of big on the train sim, and ironically, I just bought a tram sim game, and so kind of just learned the controls of that. And my wife actually used to get on me because at one point I was able to play the trucking sim in the truck. And so she'd say, like, you're driving 10 hours a day, driving a truck, and then you get on the game to drive a truck.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, I would probably, I would have a question or two about it too, but I guess it all comes down to how much fun you're having when you're driving. And if you really enjoy it, then you can enjoy it in a virtual environment just as much as you can enjoy it in real life, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's very fun. I mean, unfortunately, I don't have the funds right now to go out and buy my own truck and trailer and start my own company. You know, being able to do that in trucking instead is kind of like seeing how, you know, a stretch Peterbilt in the game drives and turns. Kind of like, it's a way, I always say with simulations, it's a way to figure out what you want, or you have to go and figure out what you want.
There you go.
So, like, knowing how stretched out Peterbilt articulates or how a Volvo turns. And, like, a lot of people don't know, like, the guys who make trucking sims, they go to actual trucking companies like Volvo and trying to get as many, like, specs as they can. So it's a way of being able to, like, test drive a Volvo, you know, and see how the tech works, or, like, going to the dealership and, you know, kind of figuring that part out.
For sure. For sure. That's awesome. Well, you know, you told me something when we called to schedule this interview that I wanted to chat with you about. Way back in our Unplugged OTR days, which if you haven't heard us on Unplugged OTR, that was a different podcast that I did with my co-hosts Caleb and Maria. It's on the exact same podcast feed, so anybody that's listening that's wondering about these episodes, you can find them just by scrolling down from the H&M Trucking podcast. But we had a conversation about using shower credits to poop in peace. And you told me that this is kind of near and dear to your and your wife's heart. Talk to me a little bit about shower credits and how you guys utilize those.
Well, we're very OCD. My wife's more OCD than I am, but I like to say I'm kind of like triggered OCD. I'm one of those people where, like, if I ignore something, it doesn't bother me. But the minute I start cleaning one thing or moving one thing, the whole house or the whole truck has to be cleaned out. And so, you know, we've been to a lot of places, and it seems like Love's is one of the places that are the cleanest. But typically we go, we see the bathroom, it's very disgusting. And, you know, at one point we did have the unlimited shower and drink credits at, like, Love's. And honestly, you know, sometimes in certain areas, like especially the cities, they don't, you know, they get so many people coming in and out of the stores that they don't get to clean it as often. So being able to go and just use the shower credit and have that privacy. And, you know, like, most people don't know, but, you know, with truck stops, showers don't really have a time limit. If they're really busy, they might come and knock and see if you're done. But, you know, there's been times where me and my wife, you know, have been in the shower like a very long time, just, you know, kind of decompressing. And so you can honestly be in the bathroom, brushing your teeth, on the phone, you know, pooping for hours when you pay for a shower, and you don't necessarily worry about, you know, there's a line of people like outside the bathroom. You're not going to hear people coming in knocking on your stall, and you never have to definitely worry about the possibility of a kid peeking under your stall. Right. I mean, that's always my worry.
Yeah, I've never understood why stall doors don't go all the way down to the ground. It does not make any sense to me. You know, yeah. It seems like at this point we've got, you know, American Trucking Simulator that can teach you how to drive a truck. Can we please just extend these doors? I feel like the technology is there. Let's just give us some more privacy in these public bathrooms. But I love it, man, that you're utilizing those shower credits. Yeah, I could see myself turning the shower on super hot and taking like a steam, you know, just hanging out, almost having it feel like a sauna in there or something, nice and relaxed. And it also makes me wonder if anybody's ever taken a full 34 and spent most of it on a shower credit in a shower. Right?
Yeah, honestly, if they start putting like couches in there and a little TV, I might spend a 34-hour reset in the shower.
Yeah, there you go. And it's cheaper than that studio apartment by far. Yeah. Oh, way cheaper. I mean, the highest price I've ever seen, like, paying for a shower was probably $25. That's reasonable.
And even then, it's by far cheaper. I think when it comes to shower credits, the amount of times I could probably go shower at a truck stop is way less expensive than paying for rent. Like right now, we're heading back home. My mother's coming up from South Carolina so we can get stuff out of storage. And, you know, at first we didn't want to pay for a hotel. Like, we were going to park in the app, like, there's one hotel that lets us park there, like, when we're coming home. or quote unquote coming home. And so she was just going to park right next to us in her car and sleep in the car. And, being able to have that shower point, I could just, say, here you go, if you want to go grab a shower. Because it's not like they're IDing you and saying, oh, hey, you can't give out showers. One guy had unlimited points, and he spent the whole day at the truck stop handing out showers to drivers.
It's like the shower Santa Claus. That's amazing.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
That's great, man. Well, listen, you mentioned your wife. I'm a married guy myself, and so I feel like we have to give her a little bit of time here. What's your wife's name? How long have you guys been married?
So, my wife's name is Linda, and we've been, I think it'll go on 3 years this November. Yeah.
Don't let me start a fight now. Get that date right, okay? Because you got a small area you got to live with each other.
So we always say we believe, both of us believe it's 2 years, but we were together and we were kind of like operating in a way where it felt like we were married. So when we did officially get married, it felt like it was for everybody else because we were already like making house decisions and planning for like having a child in the future. And even as far as like every decision I made with what trucking company I wanted to go to and how I wanted to like run a business, we were making every single one of those decisions together. So like, it was like I didn't even really make like a big proposal because it kind of felt like, oh, well, here's your ring, but we've already kind of been married without, the certificate to say we were.
Right.
So we always get, when people ask us, we always get confused because we're like, I don't know, are we considering when we felt we were married or when we officially got married?
I hear you. Well, that's good then. There's nothing to fight about then in that case, if you're both kind of on that same wavelength. But that's great, Montey. Well, listen, we're up against the clock here, so I'm going to get off here and let you go. But I really appreciate you coming on. I'm stoked that you're so happy to be with H&M. I know I can speak for them when I say we're happy to have you on board. And I'm glad that you and your wife, Linda, are out there building the life for yourselves. It sounds like you're right in the right spot. And we just thank you so much for your time today.
Well, much appreciated. And, I mean, I know one of the things going on here I definitely want to mention if I could.
Sure.
I do definitely try to educate new drivers coming into Hopper. Although I've been driving for quite a while, I'm new to Hopper myself, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of information out there with Hopper. So I do have my own little trucking channel, and one of the videos I'm looking on making very soon was about, chaining up the truck in the wintertime. It seems like a lot of drivers, especially drivers who've been out here way longer than I have, or as long as I've been born, even still don't know how to chain. They always go with the mindset of if it snows, pull over, don't use the chains, but we never talk about that emergency situation where you need to and now you don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
So my trucking channel, a home in trucking, essentially our home is trucking, and people can go on there and get some information and kind of see things.
That's awesome, and that's on YouTube?
Yep, it's on YouTube. They can find some clips of it on TikTok, again, at a home in trucking. It's all kind of one word.
And it's home in trucking, so HOMEIN and then trucking?
A-home. Yeah,
A-home in trucking. Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Well, happy to give that a plug for you. If you're listening to this, you're wondering what's going on with Montey and Linda out on the road, go check out a home in trucking on YouTube, please. We would love to see that channel blow up for you because you know what? You did really good on this podcast, so I imagine you're probably a very entertaining guy to watch do things like that. So we are more than happy. I'm going to go check out some of those videos as soon as we get off here with you. Please drive safe out there. Keep the shiny side up, and we'll definitely be back in touch to get you back on the podcast in the future. All right, Montey?
Thank you. Much appreciated, and I look forward to it.
All right. Take care. Thank you. All right, so we're always here to bring you the most important things that we can and things that you need to know while you're out there driving. And this seemed to be a pretty important one. This comes from CVSA, that's the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance. They've announced that July 9th through 15th is this year's Operation Safe Driver Week. Throughout that week, law enforcement officers in Canada, Mexico, and the United States will be looking out for commercial motor vehicle drivers and passenger vehicle drivers engaging in unsafe driving behaviors. Those exhibiting unsafe driving behaviors will be pulled over and given a warning and or issued a ticket or a citation by law enforcement. The week-long driver safety traffic enforcement and awareness campaign aims to identify unsafe drivers, deter dangerous driving behaviors, and prompt positive driving habits through officer interactions with drivers, as their data shows that traffic stops and interactions with law enforcement help reduce problematic driving behaviors. This year, they're going to focus directly on speeding. And isn't it great that they made this July 9th through the 15th, right after Independence Day? Because what's more American pie than speeding? That's America right there, right down the middle. But it's not necessarily the safest thing to do. We all know that. So be careful out there. Once again, July 9th through the 15th is going to be the CVSA's Operation Safe Driver Week. You will see an uptick of law enforcement out on the road, and they are going to be looking for you to have a little bit of a lead foot. So pay attention out there. Make sure to be polite and honest with your cops when they do pull you over, and you'll have a lot better chance of not getting that fat ticket. All right, on to the next one. Next up here on the H&M Trucking Podcast, we've got Van Division Manager Brian Gernandt. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Now, we're talking third-party logistics on this episode here, but I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, kind of more from the customer service standpoint. With your customers, is there ever a time that a customer stuck out to you as being really appreciated, maybe doing something going above and beyond and helping out the division, anything like that, or just maybe more of a general example of when customers really come through for H&M?
Well, I'll tell you, there's multiple times we can find ourselves in those situations, whether it be a small issue or a larger issue. Our customers generally care about us as a carrier when we partner with them for some time, especially. And, it might be just an ask of moving a scheduled delivery around, maybe a little later in the day or earlier in the day, to, hey, we've got a situation where we've got some sort of catastrophic event that's happened, and they're more than willing to maybe dig into some resources of their own to help H&M out. So nothing really jumps out or comes out as a pointing example, just because we find ourselves on a weekly basis leaning in on our customers a little bit as far as needing some help, maybe adjusting schedules around, adjusting weights on loads, things like that.
And how long does it take to build those really good relationships with your customers? I mean, obviously, when you're out there hauling loads in the first week or month, I'm sure that those relationships probably aren't quite there yet. But do you find that they happen pretty fast, or is that something that takes a lot of time?
Yeah. Customers really, it's a two-side. You've got a corporate side to everything, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of negotiations and a lot of talks that happen with people that aren't out on the docks, that aren't out on the roads delivering the freight. And then, of course, you have the relationships that happen out on the docks and out on the roads. So now we're talking with drivers, we're talking with shippers, receivers, and those relationships, primarily are established by our drivers here at H&M. That's what we take great pride in as a company, is knowing that our drivers are always looking out for the best of our company. And we rely 100% on that relationship. We got a consignee, we have a shipper that enjoys having H&M at their docks. It just makes things run immensely smoother. And then, maybe there's a time where corporate steps in and says, hey, we're going to consider doing something different, maybe pull a different carrier in for our business. Maybe somebody's cheaper, or maybe I know such and such over there that I want to give them a little business. Well, the folks at the docks help with our relationship and our drivers, because they then turn around and go back to corporate and say, well, that changes our world when you do something like that, because we really enjoy having H&M here at our docks, and we feel that they're always on time, they're safe, they're courteous, they're just a joy to work with. And it's those relationships. They're not easy. They don't happen overnight, but every time we go out there and we show our respect level to them and that our drivers are doing a great job, it's those relationships that really start building footings in the ground. And it's harder than for companies to try to pull away when we've got rooted, established relationships there at the consignees and the receivers. And we thank our drivers for that, because really that's the true blue. That's where the relationships start and finish. Because honestly, if you do a bad job, trust me, if you do a bad job on the deliveries or the pickups, that's going to go right up the flagpole, right up to the corporate offices, and then we're out. So it's very, very important that we maintain those relationships at our consignees and our shippers for our customers. And I really believe in that's our driver force doing most of that work for us.
For sure. Well, I can tell you, after talking to so many H&M drivers at this point in the podcast, it doesn't surprise me that you guys can rely on them to build those relationships, because the ones that I've had the privilege of talking to all seem very personal, very friendly, and just if I picture myself out there on a dock as a worker out there, and if I got to work with that guy, I would be over the moon, because I know that in the industry here, not everything's rainbows and butterflies out there on the road every day. It can't be guaranteed that every driver is going to show up in a good mood. Maybe it was just the dock they were parked at before they got to that dock. Like I said, it's no surprise that H&M is able to build these strong relationships with the fleet of drivers that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Last question I'll get to, because I know you're busy. I don't want to take up too much of your time here. From the other side of that, what do you advise drivers do if they maybe don't feel comfortable at a certain dock? Maybe it's the protocols, maybe the equipment doesn't seem safe. How do you guys navigate those waters?
Well, it really starts with the driver managers and the drivers. We really try to overemphasize that fact in orientation when a new driver comes on, that if there's any kind of situation, whether it be at a shipper or a consignee, or whether it be any other matter that they're dealing with out on the road, we hope that they're contacting their driver manager. That's the person they're going to talk to the most here at H&M. The driver manager's primary duty here at H&M is to establish that relationship and ensure that the driver has safe and good work for the day. If the drivers go into a shipper and or a consignee and they don't feel safe, or they feel that there's been a situation that's developed where they don't feel, safe on the property anymore, we want them to contact driver managers immediately and or get themselves out of the situation and then contact the driver managers. So it really just boils down to communication back to their driver manager. And from there, we're able to work through just about every situation that could possibly be. And that really is the end game. We just want to be there for the drivers, whether they feel safe there or maybe it's a truck stop. Same deal. We want to know about it. We want to work with them, because the idea that we all get to work in a safe environment is very important here to our culture.
Absolutely. And you can tell just based on the driver relationships with driver managers and dispatchers and everything that I've been privileged enough to witness. The drivers tell me all the time that they feel very supported by H&M, and every time I speak to somebody from the office like yourself, it seems like that's such a high priority for them. Once again, no surprise that things are running smoothly. Brian, I want to thank you for your time here today. As always, your knowledge and everything that you share with us is always very much appreciated. So thank you for taking the time to be here.
Glad to be here today. Thank you.
That's Brian Gernandt, your Van Division Manager from H&M Trucking. Joining us now on this Understanding Third-Party Logistics episode is the right man to bring in to help us understand third-party logistics. His name is Tim Krueger, and he's the Operations Manager over at JFL. Tim, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me on again, Marcus. It feels great to be back.
Well, you're going to get to see me in person again here in a week or so, because I'm coming back to Omaha, man. So
there we go.
We need to hit up the country club and have some steak and some drinks. What I should do next time I come, I'm going to bring my golf clubs, and you and I are going to hit the links. All right?
Oh yeah, we got to do that. If you can pull me away and and James will let me get away from the desk, maybe we can plan that out. It all depends.
If we mention the podcast on the fifth hole, does that count as a work outing?
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a workouting.
Okay.
I think that's a write-off, too, isn't it?
I think so. I really do think so. See, this is why I brought you on. You've got all these great ideas, man. I'm loving it. We're going to make it work. So here on this episode, really the goal behind it is to understand third-party logistics. I want to get into that in a minute, but you're the guy that sends me a lot of my info as far as the freight market is concerned. So I figured it'd be a good idea to ask you right off the top, how's the condition of the freight market as it stands right now? What are you seeing out there, and what are your predictions for the short-term future?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're seeing a little bit of an uptick on the van side, reefer, flatbed. You're seeing a little bit of an uptick. You know, there are still some lanes out there to where, you know, you're still running at, you know, $1.60, $1.50, nothing crazy like that. But in the markets we're running in right now, we're seeing a little bit of an uptick. It's still very low, normally what you'd see in a market like this. And I still don't think you're going to see a lot of improvement up until the end of the year going into next year. As far as, you know, bulk commodities go that we do, you know, a lot of walking floors, hoppers, belts, and dumps, you're still seeing pretty consistent stuff out there. You're seeing some wide ranges between $2.30 all the way up to, you know, $3.75, $4 a mile. You're going to see, you know, on that bulk commodity side when, you know, harvest starts kicking through August, September, October, you're going to see a lot of capacity shrink up. So I think you're on that bulk side, you're going to see quite the uptick in the market. You normally see that as it goes through. So, you know, I'm already seeing stuff with the customers we have and the trucks we're running. We're seeing more upwards in the $3, $3.25 a mile. We're seeing on that side.
Okay.
So, you know, early, you know, what I'm looking, you know, coming into end of, you know, the third quarter, going into the fourth quarter, you know, I think you're going to see a slight uptick on probably all ends there.
So a little bit of good news there at where the light is at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely, which is great for a lot of these carriers, especially on, you know, the van, reefer, flatbed side. You know, it's getting harder and harder out there, especially for these smaller trucking companies. But I think you'll see a slight uptick, but, you know, nothing big is what they're really needing out there. I don't think that'll probably come until probably the, you know, start of next year.
Okay, copy that. Well, first of all, I appreciate all that insight because it always it sounds so much better coming from you, a guy that really works within it and understands it, than coming from me trying to regurgitate it. So thank you very much for putting that out there to the drivers and everybody listening, because it sounds, like I said, way better from you. Moving on now to just kind of third-party logistics in general. Can you talk to me about the strategy behind third-party logistics, just kind of a 1,000-mile up view?
You know, normally the strategy is, you know, looking through, you know, the market, where you see it fluctuating, knowing when your produce season hits, knowing all those types of markets, seeing, you know, import, export numbers, seeing those come in and paying close attention to those, you know, is really the strategy you got to look at and really dive into. The numbers alone, which we get a lot of help from H&M, you know, they have so much data, you know, ranging all the way back since, you know, 1987. So running those numbers, what their brokerage has done as far as, you know, lane movement, lane involvement, what their trucking or what their truckers are moving at, and how they're running their asset. You know, obviously the tools I use as far as DAT goes allows us to really dive into the numbers and see what market trends are happening and where we need to be. And a big thing, you know, coming in with your strategy is just, you know, being very informative to your customers. You know, hey, I'm being the market expert here for you. I'm being this expert for you and looking into this information for you to give you the best rate possible to move your shipment. You know, me and my other freight broker here, John, I mean, we're constantly looking through that, looking at lanes when we're getting asked for quotes. And it's just always staying up to the date on that. So the big thing that we have here, it's, you know, I've done it for 7-8 years. John has done it for 7-8 years. And, you know, being involved with H&M Trucking, we see, you know, what it takes to run a truck. And we have that knowledge to back into customers saying, hey, we're owned by a trucking company. We know what it takes. And this is what we're seeing out there. And giving them that information, you know, just helps you in miles when obtaining freight and, you know, helping the trucking company that, you know, might not have the time to do what we do, you know, making the cold calls and reaching out to customers and, you know, offering them this capacity, knowing they're in good hands, that they're coming from, you know, a couple individuals that are owned by a trucking company helps a lot.
Sure. Sure. So with respect to that, you mentioned capacity there. Why is getting as many loads as possible important to you?
Yeah, so for us, it's, you own a market then. So, for instance, if, we're running a lot of freight out of Memphis right now, and if you're able to obtain that market and, grab a ton of the freight out of one area, then you can control that market. You can control that area of the company, and you can basically take your rates, and that's what is going to run in that market. So then if you own a market in a general area of the country and you're sending trucks in there, then on the truck you're sending in what you can send them out on. And that helps you a ton, when quoting for customers and trying to obtain new customers. And, you can be a little more like, hey, I know I can get you down into our Memphis area where I know we're paying good rates on. So you can kind of go into new customers and go into them like, hey, I can cut your rate, down by 10, 15%. Because we own the market and we own a lot of the freight coming out of let's just say the Memphis area. Mm-hmm. So if you can control that, you can a lot of it is, just puzzling it all together and, hey, I can run you from A to B, then B to C, C to D, and if you can keep them moving, that's what truckers want. That's, makes life easier when you're out on the road knowing, you're covered for the next, 6-7 days.
Sure. No, you got to keep them moving. A truck that's parked somewhere isn't making you any money, that's for sure.
Yep.
So from the customer side of things, can you talk to me a little bit about the process behind customers planning loads? I've always wondered, is that mostly something that happens like on a just-in-time basis where it's like they just have to plan it last minute and get it out? Or do you have a lot of customers that are trying to schedule forward a long way with their load planning?
Oh, yeah. So your bigger customers, and I'd say your bigger to medium-sized customers, and sometimes even your smaller plants, let's just say like ConAgra, for instance, they'll do an RFP every single year. You'll go through 2 rounds, and they literally tell you the volume they're moving on each and every single lane they're doing for that year. They'll tell you, hey, it's moving between these months or, these quarters. We're going to have 500 shipments for this lane, and you'll see literally 350 some lanes on an Excel spreadsheet, and you got to go through every single one and see if you can cover all 500 or if you can cover 300, and you have to go price it and figure out what you think the market is going to do for the year. So you got to see where, what we like to plan on is, okay, we'll be able to hit this margin between, January and, maybe May. And then from May on, we might see our margin shrink maybe 7%. So it's just calculating and knowing what you think the market is going to do to where it helps you and to where you're going to be most profitable. So from them, that's how they plan it all out. And then as, new shipments come up or, maybe a carrier falls off on a load, and then that goes to what most people, like bigger companies, have like a spot market board. So they'll just throw that lane on the spot market, and it throws it to all of their capacity and says, what do you need to run this? And it's a bidding process. Some run their bidding process to where you got to be $25 lower. Some run it where you got to be a penny lower.
Oh, wow.
So there's, those get real competitive real quick.
I bet.
I did a lane before I came in here running from Indiana all the way to California. And, I was looking at the market, looking at DAT, looking at day of prices because it's leaving tomorrow. And, I think we were trying to be around like 3,600 to go all the way out to California. And the next bid that came in undercut us by $700.
Wow.
Yeah. So like in our industry, you always wonder, is the customer doing that? Like coming in saying, yeah, we're not paying that. They come in and they just throw out a number and you don't know they did that. Or is there another carrier that's maybe from California and they're trying to get a guy home? So they're like, okay, I know I can win it here, and they'll just drop the price like that. But you just left that $700 on the table because you don't know what anyone else is going to quote. So how I always quote is I'll set my margin and what I think it's going to go at to get a truck, and then I'll take, probably 10 to 15% above that. And then once I hit that level and it goes below it, I'm out. I'm not going to touch it.
I like it. This is great, getting a little bit of a peek behind the curtain into your strategy here, but I'll tell you what it's making me want to do. I say we forego golf and you and I hit the tables in Vegas, man, because if if you're having success with this forecasting thing, maybe you could tell me what card's coming out next, and I can make some cash, brother.
Maybe that's what we do, and we figure that out.
We mentioned the podcast when we're sitting by the pool, and once again, it's all written off. Yep. We're on a free vacation. Okay.
Exactly.
We'll just go ahead and make sure James doesn't hear this episode, so we don't get called out,
Yeah.
Well, Tim, hey, I'm up against the clock here, but I really appreciate it. This is all great information. I love, like I said, getting that peek behind the curtain and helping understand a little bit more about what's actually going on, where the rubber meets the road here in third-party logistics. So you're a huge asset to this podcast, my friend, and we will definitely get you back on sometime in the future.
Awesome. Love to hear that. I appreciate it, Marcus, and thanks for having me again.
That's Tim Krueger, Operations Manager from JFL Logistics. Thanks, Tim. All right, it's time for us to get to a segment that we haven't had in a couple weeks that we like to call Okay, Fifth Wheel. Actually not really going to talk about, like crash stats and all the terrible things that can happen this time because Emo Marcus is still on vacation. Thank God. He's on a beach somewhere in Florida. There is a little bit of a weather warning in Florida, and we're going to get to that. I'm going to bring you some weather warnings towards the end of this segment. But first, I wanted to jump onto this stat that I found from Statista, which is a website that just pumps out stats, man. Anything that you want. You could find out the number of binkies dropped on the ground and put back in a child's mouth before the mom sucks all the gross stuff off of it. I'm telling you, this site is the site that you want to be at when you're looking for random stats. And I was going through some tourism stats and just some travel statistics, things like that, and I found this one to be very interesting. 63% of Americans say they have taken a staycation, while 37% say they have never taken one. Now, a staycation, it's pretty self-explanatory. It just refers to taking some time off work to stick around home. Either in your home state or your home country is what this stat refers to. But I like to think of a staycation as staying right here in my house. My own bed, my own kitchen, my dogs, that whole thing. I actually took one over the 4th of July weekend. Didn't have anything going on. I've got a lot of travel planned in late July, so stuck around here at home. I played some golf. The wife ran a 10K. Just things like that. And it was very nice because typically the 4th of July, and especially when it falls on a damn Tuesday, is a big production. You're getting out to a lake or you're going camping. You're taking the whole family somewhere, maybe across the state, maybe out of the state, maybe even out of the country, although I don't know why you'd go someplace else to celebrate this country's independence, but I digress. I'm surprised only 63% of people have taken a staycation. You gotta try it. It's so nice. Sleeping in a hotel room is something you almost never get to do because you're traveling, you're out there, you're ready to do whatever it is that you went to that place to do. So you're up early in the hotel room, or maybe you got somebody staying next to you that's listening to Slayer at 5 in the morning while singing in the shower. Hotel rooms don't always provide the best sleep. There's actually some statistics on that as well that say that part of your brain doesn't fall asleep when you're not sleeping in your normal habitat. Meaning there's like this strange caveman aspect in our brain that keeps part of us awake just in case some weirdness goes down in a hotel room, which we all know is something that happens kind of frequently these days. So take a staycation. That's all I can advise. I mean, I'm no expert. I just know that I felt very refreshed afterwards. And I had Tuesday off, but I worked on Monday, so I didn't have the big, long weekend that everybody had. But this was nice, man. 2 rounds of golf, one of which I'd rather forget, and one that actually I was proud to share with my friends. So talk to me about your staycations. Hit us up on the H&M Trucking Facebook page. Comment on this episode's advertisement. Let me know. Have you taken a staycation? As a driver, is that something you're actually more prone to do since you're out traveling all the time? When it's time to actually kick your feet up, are you more prone to just stay home? I want to know. And don't forget to subscribe and like and share the podcast. Once again, that all helps us so much. And you can subscribe to it on your favorite platform so that you'll know every single week when we pump out a new episode. Moving on real quick, it's actually looking really good for July as I look at the weather.gov active alert map across the country. I'm going to start up in my home area, up in the Pacific Northwest. We have red flag warnings right now in Northwest Washington, Northwest Oregon, and Southern Oregon, and even down a little bit into Northern California. There's a heat advisory there as well. What this means is it's dead in the middle of fire season. I know that because there were actually a couple of fires that were started by fireworks over the 4th of July weekend right here in my neck of the woods out in the Pacific Northwest. Now, fortunately, most of those fires have been put out and long forgotten, but I think it just goes to show you there's a little bit of a reason that you should be careful out there right now. We have some warnings, fire weather watch in the Four Corners area, northern Arizona. That's going to go down into kind of western and southern Colorado and eastern Utah, and then the northern and central part of New Mexico. So do be careful out there. We have what I guess would be a special marine warning out in Florida, pretty much the entire neck of Florida that sticks down into the ocean there. But they're always kind of looking for that type of stuff this time of year. Out on the East Coast, New Jersey, Delaware, southeastern Pennsylvania, and eastern Maryland, you guys have a coastal flood advisory, also something that I think we see kind of frequently this time of year. And besides that, the only other thing is an excessive heat warning in central Arizona and in the California desert. So once again, I think that you're pretty used to that. It's looking good out there weather-wise. I hope everybody keeps the shiny side up and has a nice, warm, and beautiful trip. If you're out there in kind of the Midwest, you've got nothing to worry about right now. Just enjoy the scenery, enjoy the azure sky, if you will. But we'll keep you updated on this stuff. Anytime we see something, we're definitely going to let you know. Oh, and I did forget, looks like here in southeastern Michigan, kind of the Detroit area, and also northern Ohio and into western Pennsylvania, you've got a little bit of an air quality warning. Still some fires going on up in Canada that are causing the air quality to be bunk in those areas. We'll keep you updated right here on the H&M Trucking Podcast. It's what we do. Next up here on the H&M Trucking Podcast is the president of H&M Trucking, James Fonda. James, thanks for joining us today. How's everything out in Omaha?
Going great. It's a perfect day out. 80 degrees.
Nice. You have some good weather over the holiday weekend there?
Yeah. The lake was pretty hot for a couple of days, but it cooled down. It was nice.
Very cool. Well, glad to have you on. We are talking about third-party logistics today, and I figured I'd open with like a pretty blanket question that should cover a lot of the things that I want to ask you, but why did you start JFL?
Initially it was to go after freight that we were not taking from customers that we currently had. We were basically just saying, no, we can't cover it and throwing it away. So it was a way for us to dig deeper into customers that we already had, and then secondly, use it as a sales arm and go out and find new additional customers.
And were your customers rather appreciative of that when all of a sudden they could trust that the loads were going to go with you instead of someone else?
I mean, it's a digging process. It's about a year old now. So now we're starting to finally get into Land Lakes and people like that. Brokers, pretty much, it's hard. We were able to get a few customers early on, but people don't really work with a broker until you're minimum 1 year old. Oh, okay. So there's kind of this like game that you have to play.
Well, it seems like you've got a good guy in there to play the game. I talked to Tim earlier on the podcast, and that guy is a absolute bucket of knowledge. I mean, I could have sat there and listened to him talk for another 30 minutes about this because I was learning so much. He's a pretty valuable member of the team there, I assume.
He is. He's really come a great asset. When we first hired him on, we had he was coming into the hopper division, and he's moving up here from Texas, I think it was, and moving back to Omaha. And we had a bunch of apps at the time, and then looked at his resume and said, this is the guy. And at the time, it was just can we keep him occupied enough to want to stay at H&M? And a few years later, he's in JFL.
That's great. So if there was one thing that you wished your drivers could understand about third-party logistics that maybe they don't, what would that be?
No, I think they all understand the old adage, if you can't beat them, join them. You just gotta hate, no matter what, you hate brokers. But at the end of the day, it does provide us much opportunity to be able to go into larger customers and say, okay, if we can't cover this on the freight, like we can do it this way, it just gives you a bigger sales arm to be able to and it's a joint effort. So not only does JFL work with hoppers, but they're also working with the van division, and when we approach customers, we approach it as one team, even though they're separate.
And so our protocols, do they remain mostly the same as far as shippers and receivers if you're grabbing something through JFL or through the broker? I'm talking about, dock rules and all that type of stuff. The things don't really change that much for the drivers, do they? Or am I off base there?
Not really. I mean, our drivers pretty much aren't touching any of the stuff that would be coming from JFL. Maybe they picked up like a handful of loads that came through JFL to H&M. But for the most part, we're going out and we have different carriers for those loads.
Great. Well, I've learned a lot today on this podcast, and I appreciate you guys sharing the knowledge with me, because this is one area that I'm still a little rusty on. And I'm always trying to learn as much as I can about the industry. So it's nice to have these conversations. But, at the same time, I like to talk about fun stuff as well. You still have all 10 of your fingers after your lake days for the 4th of July, I hope. Didn't blow any of them off?
Nope, all good.
Good. Well, they cancel fireworks around here where I'm at, because we've got red flag warnings all over the place up here in the Pacific Northwest, and it didn't matter. It was still like the beaches of Normandy outside, and fires are starting all around me, but everything's good. Everything's been put out now, which is nice, but I imagine they probably blow it out pretty big in the Midwest for the 4th of July. It's a pretty big party in there.
I think it's everywhere. I don't think it's just strictly the Midwest. And, for a while there was, they were saying they weren't going to allow them in the Ozarks either. And luckily, it rained a ton right before, and there you go, open the door for mayhem.
I feel like maybe we just have some people that aren't as proud of our country's birthday up here in the Pacific Northwest. Maybe that's it. I don't mean to paint with a broad brush, but. Like there's a 10K race, but there's no parade. Like there's no big fireworks show anymore, because they don't want to set the example. Even though, people are still blowing stuff up left, right, and center. We're not even allowed to have fireworks that go up in the air in Oregon. I don't know if you know that, but we're a ground bullshit firework only state. I mean, it's like you can only watch so many ground blooms and throw so many snap pops before you're just over it. And at 38, I think that I got to that point.
Like commercially, they don't even have like commercial fireworks?
They won't put them out, not in Eugene, not in this area. There's like over where I grew up, which is a lot more rural. They ran out of funding for a big fireworks show years ago, and the county just comes together and people take money out of their own pockets and donate until they can put on a big show up at the local lake. But around here, they used to shoot them off at Autzen Stadium, which is where the Oregon Ducks play. They canceled that probably over a decade ago. Then they used to shoot them off from a local farm team baseball stadium. That burnt down, not because of their fireworks, but because of some misplaced teenager fireworks that they were throwing. So there's just been a couple of incidents that have made everybody overcorrect, and it bums me out, because 4th of July is a water holiday. That's when you should be on a lake or on a river or on a beach. And it's just, to me now, it's just another weekend, because nothing happens around me. I got to go someplace to experience 4th of July.
That's just crazy to me. I mean, do you remember that video during COVID when Newsom over in California stated no fireworks because it, protect whatever COVID, and then next thing you know, there's just drones flying over LA, and they went totally the opposite. It's just fireworks on every single house.
Yeah.
Do you remember seeing that?
I do. And it's a perfect example of why you can't tell free people that they're not free, especially not on the day that they celebrate being free, It's like, because
I was part of LA that day, all right?
Yeah.
That was the one time.
I think we all were, James. I think that was the one day I was a proud resident of Los Angeles County for sure. Well, hey, I know you got a lot going on over there. Thanks for joining us. I'm happy that you had a fun and safe holiday, and we'll be in touch with you for sure, James. We always appreciate the time.
All right, later.
Bye. Please welcome into this episode of the H&M Trucking Podcast, driver advocate Deanna. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Marcus?
I'm always happy to have you on the podcast. You can't catch me in a bad mood when we get to do a segment with you. You've been awesome as a guest. We're going to keep having you on. I told you this going way back. You might as well be a co-host at this point because you're on damn near every episode. So your time is greatly appreciated.
Awesome. I love being here. So ditto.
Awesome. So how's the week going? Have you talked to anybody? Anything crazy to report from the road, or is everything just kind of nuts and bolts and business as usual?
Nuts and bolts is business as usual. Everyone having a good July 4th. So that's always exciting to hear, and kind of some, stories from the road, out there in the wild, wild west, as we say, just trying to keep it moving. But yeah, for the most part, nuts and bolts for sure.
And I'm going to ask multiple people this today. After your 4th of July weekend, can you show us all 10 fingers? You didn't blow any of them off?
No.
Awesome. That's good to know. Good to know. Did you have a good 4th of July?
I did. I actually didn't know this, but every year my neighborhood shoots off fireworks. Didn't realize this. And so we heard that, and I was like, that sounds really close. Let's go figure this out. So we got in the car and we go around, and I was like, wow, it's literally like 2 blocks from us, and they were like shooting off like illegal ones. I guarantee they were probably from like South Carolina or something. But they were amazing, and we sat in the car in the AC, watched them for like an hour. Best experience ever.
I bet. Air conditioning and fireworks, those are 2 things that don't normally go together, so I'll take it.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. They cancel fireworks around where I live almost every single year. In Oregon, we have this law that you can't have anything that goes up in the air. So we're just like sparkler fountains and ground blooms, and it's really boring. A lot of people break the law. The cops get very busy on July 4th, as you might imagine, because you just can't tell people they're not free on Freedom Day. It just doesn't work that way.
That's such a bummer. Like, all the good ones go in the sky. Like, what? Like,
it's true. It's true. But so 2 of the major fires we've had in this area, the fire that was in the Columbia Gorge that it was something like 80,000 acres a few years back, was started with fireworks. And then there was an old farm team baseball stadium right here in Eugene that I used to go to watch the local team, the M's, on Thirsty Thursdays for $1 beers. Like, that was my entire college experience. And a couple 8th graders burnt that whole stadium down with some fireworks in like not even around the 4th of July. It was like August or September, and burn it right to the ground. So, while it frustrates me that I can't explode something in the name of freedom, I guess I understand it due to the just millions upon millions of dollars of damage that have been caused. Kind of makes you wish that the 4th of July was a little closer to like New Year's Eve, where it's all covered in rain and snow around here and nothing can catch on fire. But you can't have everything, Deanna.
Right. You can't.
I'll tell you what I can have, though. And now Deanna's quick stop tip of the week on the H&M Trucking Podcast.
What do you got for us this week?
Yes. Okay. So I've talked to a number of drivers that have either had some health issues, either whether it be like upcoming surgeries or cancer or what have you. So I kind of wanted to like hone in on like healthy eating while you're on the road. I know that's a super hard topic because there's not many options out there but fast food. You're in a hurry because you have a load you have to go. Truck stops really don't give you health options. Mainly it's like cheese dogs and like hamburgers and like stuff that you can get really quick.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wanted to talk about like how you might be able to implement some healthy eating. And I got a great resource straight from the Veteran Affairs website. They have like a whole list of things. So definitely check it out. I know we have a lot of veterans at H&M, so that's a good resource to have. So basically they have like a little PDF breakdown of ways you can plan ahead while you're on the road. So typically planning ahead means, to me, it means going to the grocery store and kind of planning my week. So what things I can get that are not only healthy, but not super expensive. Like, you don't have to worry about organic or anything like that. But I think they break it down into fruits, which can be fresh or canned. I know, if you're in a situation where you're on the road for a couple of days, having fresh fruit available to you probably hard. But then there are also canned fruits that you can do that aren't as sugary as an option. I like to, when I get fruits, chop them up immediately, clean them, and put them in like glass containers. Tend to keep really well. That's something easily you can implement on the road. I know that H&M does have, sources where you can have refrigerated fruit. Probably like whole grain breads. So, grab some peanut butter, whole grain bread. Go for that. Mini bagels, English muffins, something you can do.
Right.
Vegetables.
Yeah.
Super easy to like prep with those. Like I've been trying to implement broccoli more in my life. So I will get like the broccoli florets and then break them down, break the bag down to like 5 or 6 broccoli florets and then try to eat them as a snack. Same with carrots. They come like, you get the baby carrots and dip those in ranch or whatever you want to dip them in. And just easy ways to get vegetables into your system because you kind of want to have a rainbow of different fruits and vegetables. Milk, again, a little harder because it's not like you can buy a gallon of milk and expect it to last a while, but you can get the small containers. They're half gallons. You can get some like string cheese or things you can grab on the road. Yogurt, super accessible. Meat and protein, I know that a lot of drivers, will cook a chicken or, pull over, have a little frying pan they can use. I'm just trying to implement some protein. But it's tough because it is really easy to, especially when you're on the road. I have the same issue when I go on road trips. I tend to want to pull over to Burger King or McDonald's or go through something really fast, really easy. But at the end of the day, my stomach's hurting because that's not the healthiest choice for me, but it's fast and it's accessible. So
exactly. And it's almost like, I feel like it's kind of a pastime with a road trip for those of us four-wheelers that aren't driving full-time.
Yeah.
I operate, and I've said this before on this podcast, I'm like an unsupervised child with $100 bill. I mean, I will eat anything on a road trip. And a lot of the times I'm trying to actually up my salt intake so I don't have to stop in the bathroom. Not a healthy decision, just in case anybody was wondering out there. And actually, I did want to bring this up real quick. Going back to the Unplugged OTR days, if you go to episode 12 of Unplugged OTR, we interviewed driver Roy Howe, who has cut out like all the bad oils out of his diet as a driver and lost a bunch of weight, is a bunch healthier. There's a lot of really good info on this very topic in that episode, so go check that one out. Once again, episode 12. It's called Cutting Out Oils OTR and Baby's First Blueberry at 17. We talked about Caleb not eating a blueberry until he was 17 years old. Don't get me started again on that guy's diet. But this is great stuff because the other thing that a lot of times we don't talk about is you got to maintain your med card. You have to be medically cleared to have one of these gigs. And so if you're out there eating like I do, like an unsupervised child, it's nothing but combos and licorice, you're not going to keep that med card for very long because it's a sedentary job. You're sitting for most of it. And it's tough. I understand exercising out on the road, eating right out on the road. It's not an easy nut to crack. But listen to what Deanna has to say. Ask her about it. If you're out there driving and you're like, man, I want to clean up my diet a little bit, call Deanna and she'll talk to you about it over at Driver Advocacy and really help you bring that goal home because it's a great goal to have. And at the end of the day, we want healthy drivers out there on the road.
Yeah, and you make a great point, Marcus. Like there are, your DOT physicals that you have to, you're going to either a family doctor and they're checking blood pressure, they're checking, like your blood work and making sure that's all good. So I think small changes really help.
Yes.
In implementing small changes. I know it's super hot out right now, July, no matter where you're at. So just to keep hydrated too, making sure, instead of taking that Coke or Pepsi, maybe get some water in there somewhere.
Boo, it's so boring though.
know.
You know how boring it sounds, but it is the right thing to do. I try to have both. I try to have my caffeine and my water, and I try to kind of alternate. Let's be honest, the water stays full more times than not. But we're not talking about me here. We're talking about these drivers. We're up against the clock here, Deanna, so thank you so much. Let's play this one more time.
And now Deanna's quick stop tip of the week on the H&M Trucking Podcast.
And I hear a little bird told me that button is going to get a little bit of an update here in the near future. So I hope you didn't fall in love with it quite yet. We're going to make it even better going forward, all right?
Even better. Wow. I'm so privileged. That's amazing. Wow, I feel so special.
Let them know when they can talk to you real quick, and then we'll let you get out of here.
Yeah, so I'm Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's Eastern time. And then I do 3 hours on Sunday, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Call your driver advocate. That's why she's there. Call her and talk to her. I talk to her every week. It's friggin' awesome. Thanks, Deanna.
Thanks, guys.
That's going to wrap it up for us here on this episode number 18 of the H&M Trucking Podcast. Can you believe it? We have already equaled the amount of episodes of Unplugged OTR here on the H&M Trucking Podcast. Now, once again, as I said in the interview with Montey Blake, if you want to check out any of those old Unplugged OTR episodes, they're right in the same feed. So just keep scrolling down, run right past the very first episode of the H&M Trucking Podcast, and you'll see all of those Unplugged OTR podcasts down below that. I want to say thanks to Montey for coming on. You can check out his YouTube channel. Once again, A Home in Trucking on YouTube, and also he's got some stuff on TikTok. Go give him a follow. Give this podcast a follow, share it with your friends, subscribe to it so you know when the new episodes come out. It's every single week on Wednesday at 5 a.m. Central Time, just in case you were wondering. But if you subscribe, your phone will take care of all that for you, or your device will take care of all that for you. And here coming up very soon, there's going to be a landing page where you're going to be able to stream this audio without having to download it for those of you that are worried about your data or anything else. We appreciate all of you, Brian Gernandt, James Fonda, Deanna Compton, and of course, Montey Blake. Tim, I almost forgot Tim, and I had such a great conversation with Tim. I'm running out of time here to even thank all the people because we've had so much good content in this episode that we've just sucked up all the free time that we have. So I'm going to shut up, something I'm not very good at. We'll see you next week. It's the H&M Trucking Podcast. Stay fresh, cheese bags.
Thank you for listening to the H&M Trucking Podcast. Please leave a review, subscribe, and connect with Marcus over at the H&M Trucking social media channels. And if you're considering a job at H&M, find us at hmtrucking.com. Until next time, stay safe and ahead of the curve drivers.